let's talk about the 10 most underrated Big Ten transfer portal additions. Now, this is not us ranking them. This is not us saying nobody else is underrated other than these guys. These were just purely me and Zach each coming up with 5 guys in the transfer portal that we feel like have been underrated, maybe glossed over, guys that are going to be big additions for their teams next year. We believe will be big additions for their teams next year, and maybe they're just not getting the love nationally that they should get. So, Zach, I will let you go first with your first one. Who is your first underrated Big Ten transfer portal addition?
Well, I know I think both of us have this guy, but I think Ethan Onianwa from Ohio State, or going to Ohio State from Rice. He's a 3-star guy. He's not top 100 in the transfer portal, and yet you talk to certain scouts, they think he easily could have been an NFL draft pick this year. And in fact, Tom Luganbill, who, he's hit and miss, but he was shocked that he didn't go. And he said that he's the best tackle prospect by far in the portal. And knowing the needs of the Buckeyes, they just had another tackle enter the transfer portal. It fills a huge need for Ohio State, along with the other tackle they got from Minnesota. Mm-hmm. I mean, now they have bookend tackles in the portal, and that was what they needed.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. He was on my list as well. Just felt like it was a really good addition for Ohio State. I would not be surprised at all if in the off, or maybe next season or something like that, we hear something where Ethan is like, it was either going to Ohio State or going to the NFL draft, and that's kind of what Will Howard has said this year, the quarterback for Ohio State. So I wouldn't be surprised if we heard something like that. To that credit. My first one I'm gonna say is Taitai Uiagalelei. I apologize if I said that first name wrong. He is going from Arizona to Washington. Look, Washington lost a lot of guys on the defensive line this past year. Uiagalelei is, and I have no idea if he's related. I think he is somehow related to the other Uiagalelei's, but I'm not sure. He is so versatile. He is lined up in so many different positions on the defensive line for Arizona. He's done a good job the past few years that he's been playing for them. He has experience. I think this was a great addition by Jedd Fisch. Jedd Fisch going back to Arizona, getting some more players. There's also a cornerback that we'll talk about. Well, if we have time, we'll talk about him here later on, and that they are possibly going to get coming from Arizona as well. But I just love this addition. I love it for the versatility. I love it for him being able to come in and be an experienced leader on this defensive line when you lose that much talent that they did off their defensive line, and you also had the injuries of last year as well. Not only are you bringing in a versatile guy, but you're also bringing in a guy who can start right away and give you experience as a vet. So love that.
Yeah,
Zach, who's your next one?
Big deal. I'll go to the team up north. Michigan. We were on them all this season about not getting quarterbacks. Mikey Keene, he comes from Fresno State. He's not going to be a world beater. I don't think he's going to be even like a Will Howard, but he is the perfect bridge quarterback to Bryce Underwood. And, if Underwood struggles to grasp the offense early, Mikey Keene can kind of be there to be the guy until Bryce is ready. And that means Michigan is going to be primed next year, I think, to be in that playoff discussion. They're not going to have, I don't think they're going to have the same stumbles on offense like they did a year ago. They won't be super explosive with Mikey Keene, but they will be in control. And I think that's a huge deal for Michigan. And I think it's way bigger than I think people realize, because Mikey Keene would have started over all 3 of the guys that are at Michigan right now. And I think he's gonna keep the ship steady until Bryce is ready.
Steady till Bryce is ready. I like it. Good rhyme. Good rhyme there.
Thank you.
I couldn't go through an entire underrated Big Ten transfer portal without mentioning Indiana. I really like the addition of Kahlil Benson from Colorado to Indiana. Played at Colorado played at Indiana 2 years ago. Transferred to Colorado. Now coming back to Indiana to play again. He has had some injury issues, and that's why he hasn't always been starting. I think he started all of 2023 at Indiana, all of 2023 at Indiana, So if I get that wrong, I do apologize, but I know that was the season where he started the most. And I just think that you bringing in a guy with experience, bringing in a guy from the Power Four, we talked about it on the Penn State recap episode. What does what does Indiana need to bring in this transfer portal class? And I said, like, you need to bring in offensive linemen. Now they were going after a James Madison guy who hasn't started or played much football yet, and I thought, okay, that's a good start, but you also need to go out there and get guys who have been at Power 4 programs who have
Mm-hmm.
faced Power 4 defensive linemen and who have that experience. Well, they went out and they got Kahlil Benson, and I'm not going to use another pick on it, but they went out and got Zin Michalski from Ohio State as well, who it looks like he wasn't going to be starting this year because of what Ohio State brought into the transfer portal, but he is a player who is a veteran who has seen playing time on a big stage at Ohio State. He did not look very good against Nebraska, but that could just be being thrown into one game. We'll see how it works out for Indiana, but I really like the addition of Kahlil Benson for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Good pick. Good pick. I'm going to go Justin Bowick for Illinois. 6'4" receiver, was super productive at Ball State when healthy. He only played 4 games this year, but in those 4 games, he was super productive. And he fits, he's very similar in profile to Pat Bryant. Tall, long, yards after catch. And that's, we talked about it, 18 starters coming back. Who are the starters that aren't coming back? The receivers. And so getting a productive receiver who is big and long and maybe a matchup problem, that's a missing piece. And I think he could be that if he stays healthy for Illinois.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like that pick. I will go with another offensive lineman because I love offensive line so much. I'll go with Xavier Gray from Liberty to Northwestern. Now, Gray is not going to be an NFL draft prospect. He plays either right or left tackle. He's just not good enough of a pass blocker, which is definitely something that's against him and he needs to get better at. But the dude is like 6'9", nearly 350 pounds, and he run blocks very well. And for a Northwestern team that I think David Braun is going to want to make sure they can shore up one side of their offense, bringing in a guy like Xavier Gray, who was all Conference USA honorable mention this past year, for him to come from Liberty, come from playing experience the past couple years as well. Just such a big guy, going to be such an intimidator in the run blocking. I just really like it. I think it's a great move by David Braun, and we'll see if Xavier Gray has a good year or not, but just more so him bringing in somebody with experience, somebody who is so large to come start on that offensive line, I think is a big thing.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Good pick. I will go with another Indiana guy, and that is former Maryland running back Roman Hemby, who I feel like people have forgotten that Roman Hemby was a pretty good Big Ten back. The problem is he's played at Maryland where they had no offense. And so his stats, his production has been way down. But when he's been on a decent team with a decent offensive line, he has been effective both in the run and the pass game. And what's Indiana losing? Running backs. Justice Ellison, a senior. Tyson Lawton, senior. Those guys did some work for the Hoosiers. And so now you get a good running back who's experienced, who's played in the Big Ten, who's been part of spunky Maryland teams who have been close but not there yet. He comes in to be one of their tailbacks in that rotation, and I think it's a great pickup for them.
Sorry, my wife was texting me and I had to respond to her while I was in the middle of the podcast. My bad. No, I did hear what you said about Roman Hemby, though, and I agree. I think that was a good pickup for them. I think that's a guy with experience, and he's proven he can be a good player. He just didn't have a great year this past year, but bring him into Indiana, they can have a good year possibly with him, so I like it. My other most underrated player coming into the Big Ten, and this is where I mentioned Minnesota earlier in the wide receivers, I really like the addition of Javon Tracy. I think Javon Tracy coming in from Miami of Ohio to Minnesota, he'll be an underrated weapon for him because Malachi Coleman is coming in as kind of the big wide receiver in this class, and I think with Javon Tracy coming in, kind of being a little bit more like, oh, the Miami of Ohio guy. He really had some good games this year, and he was really able to make some noise for that Miami of Ohio team. And I think Miami of Ohio is a good program. So I think what's the guy's name? Chuck something as the coach there, and I think that he has built a good program at Miami of Ohio. So I think Javon Tracy is going to come in from a good program. He's going to be a good piece of this locker room, and I think PJ Fleck. The additions he's made, it was hard to choose one, but I wanted to make sure I got somebody from that Minnesota team or transfer portal additions, and Javon Tracy is the one that seems to be getting the least amount of talk that I think could make a name for himself next season.
Yeah, that's good. It's Chuck Martin, by the way.
Chuck Martin, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm trying. Have we done 4 each?
You have one more left.
I have one more left. Okay. Oh, which one do I pick? I'm going to go with a guy who actually a lot of Northwestern fans are really excited they got, and it's Preston Stone from SMU. I think that pickup is big considering the context of Northwestern football over the past several years. They have risen and fallen with quarterbacks who can keep them in games and not make big mistakes. And if you look at what he did at SMU a few years ago, he was a quarterback who was very productive and did not make a lot of mistakes. He led them to an athletic American Conference championship. And then he got injured. He was injured, I believe, in the last game of the regular season and got benched for Jennings, which I'm not sure if that was really the right call. But he got Wally pipped essentially. But he comes in, what they need is a stabilizer, and they've not had that with their quarterback rotation. And so it feels to me like, how with Pat Fitzgerald, under Pat Fitzgerald, it seemed like every other year Northwestern was like, they're terrible, they're great again, they're terrible, they're great again. If you look at the trajectory, it's always been based on who's quarterbacking. Like if they have a solid quarterback who can keep them steady, they have a good year. I think Preston Stone is that guy.
Yeah, I thought about putting Preston Stone on my list as well. I obviously did not because I thought there were some other ones, but I'm glad you mentioned him because he's one that I definitely wanted to highlight as well. My final one, and I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball because I started on defense. I figure I'll end here on defense. Andre Jordan Jr. coming in to UCLA from Oregon State. UCLA has quietly had a very good portal cycle for themselves, bringing in a lot of good talent, and Andre Jordan Jr. coming in from Oregon State. He had an excellent season this past year, and one of the things that I liked most about him was that he really wasn't targeted all that often. Less than 40 times, and he played the entire season, less than 40 times was he targeted this season. And oftentimes, if you know anything about cornerback play, if you're targeted less, that typically means you're doing a good job because the guy that you're guarding is not open as much. It's clear when you watch him play, because I did look at a little bit of stuff and I did see him against Oregon. It's clear that he needs more strength. He's just a little too skinny. He's a little too weak right now. But once you get him into a good strength and conditioning program, and if UCLA can make that happen here in the offseason, he can be a much better player. He has the length. He has the speed. He just needs to bulk up a little bit more, get better physically, and I think he can turn into a really good cornerback for UCLA this next year. So
nice.